Hey there everyone, and welcome to another Vibrant Music Teacher Chat. I am so thrilled that you're here, and today we're going to be talking all about teaching technique in online lessons. This is something that many teachers have been struggling with as they try to describe various different technique motions to their students, or the students can't see them clearly, or they can't see their student clearly, and all different factors going on like that as we work with online lessons. This is definitely one of the more challenging areas to teach through a video call, but I'm going to help you to hopefully improve your technique teaching to make it work for you in today's chat. So let's get started. As you're joining me here on today's Vibrant Music Teacher Chat, do let me know where you're joining me from. Say hi over in the chat. This is a chat after all. And if it's just me talking to myself, then it's not much of a chat. So say hello to me. Let me know where you're joining me from, as I said, and any questions you have about today's topic or online teaching, general wonderingments that are on your mind, anything that's coming up for you right now. As I go live with this broadcast, I have my recital tomorrow, so that's what's on my brain, but tell me what's on yours and what I can help you with most today. We're going to be talking, as I said, about technique, but before we get into that, I want to give you a few bits of housekeeping. The first is the schedule for this show. So we're going live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to help you to teach online effectively and stay calm and connected to us in the community, so we can all take a big, deep breath together and stay calm. So if you can join me live, I love to have you here in the room with me every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's afternoon time over here in Ireland or the UK or Europe. And it's morning time for you guys over in the US and Canada, so that hopefully you can join me with a cup of coffee and start your day off right with some lovely vibrant music teaching fun. So that's our schedule: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we have a coupon code that I always like to let you know about online, which will get you a 1-week trial to vibrant music teaching for just $1. Okay, so just $1 for a whole week trial to see whether vibrant music teaching is right for you, using that coupon code when you're signing up for monthly membership. And there's details of that below this video in the description, so you can check it out there. If you're looking for resources right now and you're not sure of the financial side of things, then take a look at that. Give it a try and hopefully see you inside the community there. We don't normally offer a trial. This is something we just started the very start of the lockdown here in Ireland, which was before the start of the lockdown in the US. So we've been running it for a while, and we're going to keep running it as long as I feel that teachers need help with this stuff in an urgent sort of way. So that's probably going to be through into the summer here in Ireland. Thank you all so much for joining me live. I see Bernadette back here again. Janelle, best of luck with the recital. Hope it goes okay. I know you've been having some tech headaches today. Hopefully I was a little bit helpful with that. Lots of people, regulars in the chat here. Elizabeth, Linda, Carrie. Great to see you, Carrie. And loads of others as well. Oh, fantastic. I'm so glad to have you all here as we talk about technique. Last thing before we get to that is I want to hear your ideas for topics for next week. So the 3 topics we did this week were playing games in online lessons on Monday. Then we did setting fees and that kind of stuff on Wednesday. And now today we're doing technique. The reason we're doing these are based on your questions and your ideas for topics you wanted covered from last Friday. Okay? So let's try and continue that trend. If you have things that you want me to discuss next week, let me know. Ideas, things you want to see from inside my studio. Is there anything you want to be a fly on the wall for example? A couple of weeks ago, I did a session where I did all my planning for my lessons, for a few of my lessons, live on a call so that I could talk you through the process. Is there anything like that you'd like to see me putting together? Or is there another topic you want me to look at? Or is there a guest you want me to have on so that they can talk about their special area? Let me know about that in the chat as we go through today. Carrie, buddy lessons, that's a good suggestion. Buddy lessons online, I'm assuming, in particular, or maybe in general, we could do a general one, but I can focus specifically on what I'm doing with my buddy students online. That's definitely good food for thought. But today we're talking about technique. Has anybody been struggling with that? Have you been finding it challenging? Have you been finding it impossible? Technique is something where, even for us, those of us who have used online lessons for a little while, it might be something we usually leave out of online lessons. Like if we're doing them as occasional makeups or for like 2 weeks of a snow under kind of situation, we can just kind of ignore it or, you know, give it a bit of a pass and focus on other stuff and get more creative and do all that. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're looking at, what is this, our 3rd month? I've totally lost track of teaching online. Anyway, it's been a while, hasn't it? So we can't keep ignoring it forever. And if that's the boat you've been in, I'm hoping I'm able to help you with that today. So the first thing I wanted to look at was ways that you can sort of half mimic what you would be doing in person, or even give people a better view. So one of the things you really, I don't like to say need for stuff like this, but will be of huge benefit for you in the teaching of technique is, I can't do it. I still can't do it, guys. There, the overhead camera. It doesn't help that I did a webinar yesterday where I was flipped, and so I'm all over the shop again with my pointing. But that overhead camera is something that really is super important when you're teaching technique and very, very useful. Now, it does provide a bit of a weird view, so you have to talk around that a little bit, I find. For instance, if I'm talking about wrist lift-offs, I'll point out to the student that my wrist is going to come towards them and they need to figure out what that means, right? So they need to think about what that's because my wrist is going up. So you need to tell people what to focus on, but the overhead camera definitely does help for being able to point this stuff out and have a little bit of a closer up view. The other thing that's useful that I don't have is a side camera. Because of my setup here, this is what makes sense for my space. I don't have a better way to situate this, and this does work very well for me. I'm happy with my setup. But ideally, this camera would be there. You can't see where I'm pointing, but over there to the side of my piano. Not where it is. But because of where my computer is and my desk and how limited I am on space actually in this room, because I have a huge table behind the camera there, I can't have a side view. And so I have to make do without one. I have to talk through, you know, how things look on the overhead cam and encourage my students to think about that a bit laterally. But ideally you would have a side camera and an overhead camera so that you can switch between them and show technique more clearly. A good backup plan, if you're like me, is the arm piano or the hand piano. This is very useful. Holding this up to the screen and saying, do you see the shape of my fingers? Do you see the strength of my fingertip? Right? So that's very useful for demonstrating technique. If you're not currently employing your arm piano, I highly suggest you give it a go. Just checking in with the chat to make sure I get to your guys' questions. Okay, these are general technique questions. I'm glad I took a look. This is interesting. So, rhythm work with kids who have small screens and have a hard time seeing. I don't know how that affects rhythm work. Maybe you could clarify that, Carol, for me. Yeah, totally true, Krista. Although for my piano safari students, if I just mention which animal technique they should be using with the song, it helps. Yeah, this is where piano safari is really, really useful in the way they talk about things. because you have those animals and you can just say, oh, you're not playing with your Zachariah zebra hand or whatever, and they can get the picture from that. Denise said, yes, challenging. I find myself constantly saying, sit up nice and tall. Students tend to slouch when they are comfortable at home. Yeah, but Denise, not pushback for you on that, but just a side note, which is really important on that, is if that's the case, they are always sitting like that when they practice. And that's most of the time that they play. So fixing it at home is actually a huge benefit you can get from online lessons, because now they are at home and you can see how they get comfy, and maybe they have a dining room chair and I'm being silly. I'm not being silly if you have any teens, by the way, but if you have kids, they wouldn't quite do that, most of them. Teenagers though, oh my gosh, as soon as they hit like age 10, it starts to happen, right? They just sort of close in on themselves. So yes, I totally get what you're saying, but it's a really great opportunity, I think, to improve their home technique so that it's actually better going forward at home and in their practice. Nice. Carrie says her overhead camera saved her life. Yeah, it is huge. Much, much easier to see what's going on. Although, as Melissa said, the side camera is better for some technique things, like that wrist thing I was talking about. Although I can show you how it looks to my students. So I just explain to them that they need to, do you see my wrist? And I point to it and I say, okay, it's coming up towards the camera at you. That's because I'm lifting it, and you need to try and mimic that as well. So you can get around these things, you know, you're not stuck. You just have to think through what they're seeing and how they might interpret that. Another good option though when it comes to technique, if you can't demonstrate things clearly, if you can't have a camera setup that makes it that your student can see what's going on, or if their sound quality on their end is just too poor, where you think it might be, recorded videos. That's the best way to go. You send your student a quick video. You can even take a few minutes of the lesson. So say, okay, we're going to finish 5 minutes early so that I can record this really useful video that you can use in your practice to show you XYZ. To show you that wrist lift off from the side, because I know you had trouble seeing that and I want to give you a better angle, right? Parents are going to be open to that, guys. You don't have to use every minute of the lesson in exactly the predictable way that you did before. This is not the predictable, usual lesson format, okay? So get creative with things. Record parts of your lesson if you need to. And if you have something like that, and it is something that lots of your students are working on, you can use that video for several of them. So it's going to be really valuable. So if you're recording a video, you know, you can position your phone, you can have it at the perfect angle, you can move it around in a way that you can't on a live call. So that's a great option for exploring technique that you can't see clearly or hear clearly through a live call. Whoops. My chat was scrolled way up and I was like, oh, no one's been commenting. Nope. Scroll. Melissa said, yes, with regard to posture, I've seen most bench heights are way too low and the elbows are dragging. Right. I had another teacher, might be someone who's live here, who said that their students quickly learned, no, I think it might have been Lynette, anyway, quickly learned, or parents quickly learned, to get the setup right before they went on the video call, because otherwise the first 5 minutes of the lesson are spent hunting around for what they need. That was Rosemary, I've just remembered, that's why I paused in the middle there. That was Rosemary Brenner in our interview, which was on the Vibrant Music Teaching chat. She said parents quickly learned that if they don't have it set up, if they don't have the bench, if they don't have the stool, if they don't have things right, she's going to say, okay, go get this, okay, go get that at the start of the lesson. So they might as well just do it right from the beginning. Yeah? So that's a good lesson from them.
Here's what I found on the web.
From her, sorry. And for them, for their home setup. Denise says, LOL, it makes me cringe, and I'm happy to be able to help them with their home technique. Yeah, absolutely. It is a bit cringe-worthy. And it's been something teachers have been learning alongside what their students' home instruments look like. sometimes and sound like. I have one that is a weighted keyboard. I'm going to be careful not to give anything away because they won't watch this, but still, I want to be sensitive to this because they didn't know when they bought it. But it's a weighted keyboard, and I've always just pretty much, I have always specified that it's a furniture stand, so it's like this one here that you can see it's a real stand, yes, and that the keys are weighted, and I demonstrate to parents what that means, and I do ensure that they upgrade to something like that at home if they can have a piano. But I didn't realize that pianos that look and feel like that can sound as terrible as this one sounds. I had no idea because I'd seen it in photos and I checked all that stuff, right? And I'm good about doing that and something I really believe in doing. But this piano, the sounds coming out of it are so horrendous. Like, I'm astounded at how bad it sounds. I'm still flabbergasted. Quite a few weeks into teaching and seeing this keyboard. And at first I thought through Zoom, I was like, oh, maybe their sound is coming through their phone weird, or their device weird. And then we have our recital, so they recorded it, and I know the sound would be fairly decent on any phone recording, like fairly true to what it is, and it's so horrible. The tone out of that thing is just, ugh, I've never heard something so bad. Anyway, that's a bit of a side note, but there you go. Bonnie, yes, we do indeed. So she said, do you have a tutorial or can you recommend a resource on setting up 2 cameras and switching between views both in live and recorded lessons? Yeah, so Bonnie, just open a new YouTube tab right now so you don't forget and do a search for how to use an overhead piano camera or how to set up an overhead piano camera, and we have one here on the channel. It should show up in a YouTube search and you can use that. So hopefully that helps. Carrie said, I found out at the beginning of quarantine that my student was practicing on a keyboard without weighted keys. Yeah, it happens. Even though we had discussed the importance of having weighted keys, I was shocked. Yeah, that's why I said the photo thing, right? So I get my students at the start of lessons to take a photo of their piano posture at home, and that surreptitiously allows me to check that they really have what they think they have, because a lot of the time it's just that they don't understand what I'm saying and they don't want to clarify, or they think they understand what I mean but they haven't got it right, and so having that photo is really valuable. But as I said, this looks like it should be a decent instrument, not amazing, not some incredible brand, but I didn't know any brand sounded that bad. Okay. Oh, that's interesting, Laurie. No, it wouldn't. She suggested there was a ceiling fan that was warping the sound. No, on the video it's really clear it just is crap sound. That's what's happening. And ceiling fans are not common here because it's not hot enough, so we don't really have ceiling fans. So, interesting suggestion for others though. So I had a few more things that I wanted to mention in terms of teaching technique. And these are the basics of how you get stuff across visually. So you've got your overhead camera view, hopefully. You've got a side camera view if you can. You've got your arm piano to show fingertips and all of that kind of stuff and those movements up close. And then you've got recorded videos as a way to show things more clearly. But the other side of this is how you talk. Right? How you describe things. And this is the area where I feel we can learn so much right now. Has anybody here learnt something from your online teaching? A new way to describe things, a way to speak more succinctly or give clearer directions? If you have, let me know in the comments and hit the like button to let me know if that resonates with you. If you feel that you've learned a new way to speak in online lessons, because we do have to communicate in a different way. And this is doubly true when it comes to technique, right? So the first thing is that we just have to describe things, and we have to describe things in a way that makes sense to kiddos. And when they're in the room with us, we can rely on the music to do some of this for us, but we have to describe things clearly with our words in our online lessons. And really what I think we need to do is this. Say, play, say. Which is something that is based on that ancient advice about writing essays mostly in school. If you were ever told this, were you ever told to say what you're going to say it, and then say what you've said? Anyone ever gave you that advice? I'm pretty sure that's a worldwide thing. Say what you're going to say it, say what you've said. This advice often given for writing essays, recording videos, doing all sorts of stuff. And I think it holds true for looking at technique in particular, and sort of everything in online lessons. Say what technique, describe it clearly in a simple way. So say, play, demonstrate the technique, and then say again what it is, describe it again. Say, play, say. So that your student is focusing on the right thing while you're playing, and then you're reiterating it when you finish. It can be brief. It doesn't have to be a lengthy explanation. I'm not saying talk their ear off, but give a brief explanation of what they're supposed to be watching out for and what technique you want them to try and work on, and then demonstrate it, and then reiterate it in different wording. This format is simple, but it makes a big difference. And then in those descriptions, try using metaphors. So that wrist thing I talked about, where I'm lifting my wrist up and it's going towards the thing, the metaphor I often use for that is, this is a simile, is that it's like there's a balloon string tied around their wrist and it's pulling them gently up. I like the balloon. This is, I believe I first saw this in Faber Piano Dentures. I like the balloon because it's gentle, right? It's that flow. And that's what we want at the end of slurs and things like that. So little metaphors like that, you start to build them up in your little teaching library inside your brain, and they come out now. So if you have a technique that you're struggling to teach online, one in particular, something that you're struggling to describe and get across your point online, tell us in the chat. I bet someone else has a metaphor that they use or a way of describing it that is clear and easy to understand. I bet they do. And while we're waiting for those, two things to think about, I guess. So if you're ready to multitask, then I'd love to hear your ideas for topics for next week. So we've had the suggestion of buddy lessons already. That's a great one. And then topical idea, teaching to different learning styles. That's an interesting one. Yeah, so if you've other ideas for what you want to hear about next week, let me know. These chats are open to all of us. I really want it to be a community thing. I'm the one on screen, but you guys are as much a part of it as I am, and I want you to decide what we talk about rather than me saying, oh, well, this might be interesting. I mean, I can do those experiments as well, but let me know what you really need to hear about so that these can be super useful, as well as just a chance for us all to chat and connect with one another. Okay, so some ideas from the chat here. How can I fix collapsed fingers, especially finger 2? Okay, this is a big topic, Denise, and it's not specific to online lessons. Not that that's wrong, like totally fine to ask it, but it might be something that you're noticing now more in online lessons, or that you've always had trouble with and you're just trying to fix it, which is great. So, collapsing fingertip joints. Why is this happening? I'll put in a little caveat here. If you have students with hypermobile fingers, you need to just have a lot of patience with this. I put in that caveat straight away because as I talk about this, I'm going to keep holding up my fingers and you're going to see that my fingertips collapse because all of my joints are hypermobile. And so I didn't really play with curved fingers until I was like 15. So take your time with it. Just keep gently reiterating it and don't fuss too much if you do have a student with hypermobility. Now, having said that, most students are not hypermobile and they do have those collapsing joints, and that's not, it doesn't have to be that the two are connected. So the main thing I would say about that, Denise, is the main question I would have for you, let me say, is, are you teaching legato technique in a 5-finger position right from the get-go? If you are, stop that. That sounds so dictatorial. I don't mean it like that. But give it a go with teaching non-legato first and focusing on developing that finger joint with non-legato playing first. That's the first thing. That's my first advice to you. If you haven't explored that idea, start looking into researching some of that. We have some posts about that. We have some more information on that front. And that'll make the biggest difference for your teaching, long run, and all of that. Now, some other ideas. So, some teachers do finger pull-ups for occasional students who really struggle with this. So that's where you get a ledge, like the top of the piano, and you pull up. So that's to get students to isolate that finger, that top joint, so that they can feel what it feels like for it to be rounded. Also, different ways of describing it. So rather than saying curved fingers, I like to say strong fingertips. And when we're in person, oh, I can do this. Can you guys hear that? Say you probably can. I tap my finger on the piano and show them that. So I could do this on the overhead cam on my keyboard, right? Like that. So I'm showing them how loud that is, and I would bring the mic closer to that if I was doing that in a lesson, but you get the idea. They can't make that sound. That's fine. Their fingertips don't have to be as strong as mine, but it's a little bit of a silly thing that I do to emphasize to them the strength aspect, because I think that's a good selling point. Like, oh, my fingertips are so strong, isn't that cool? You obviously have to sell that idea a little bit, but it works for me. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, finger putty is another good one for students who just can't feel that feeling. But the non-legato in the beginning thing is the biggest factor. Having students play legato right away or play in a 5-finger position when their handspan is just not big enough for it is the biggest reason that a lot of students struggle with that. Valerie seconds the vote for buddy lessons. Good to know, Valerie. Thank you. Great to see you here also. Celiana. This is Ecamm Live. She asked about the software I'm using for this video so that I can have, these and all that kind of stuff and the chat. Ecamm Live is the name of this software. Helena, sorry. I know I've asked you about the pronunciation of your name before, which is why I sighed. Helena, duet playing. I'm not going to do it. No, I might do a broadcast about duet playing, but I'm not going to talk about actual duet playing. The best thing to do if you want to play real duets, the only way you can do it is with internet MIDI. And if you're interested in getting into that and you have a student who is going to be up for that, the thing about internet MIDI is that the student is going to have to set up the thing on their end as well and have the software. So really it's going to be for if you have an advanced student that you're hoping to work on duets with, an adult student who really wants to get into that, someone who particularly wants it, not your general student. That's a great option. They're going to need to have a MIDI keyboard, and so are you. Like anything that's MIDI enabled, like this digital piano behind me here, not an acoustic piano. So if you're interested in that, internet MIDI is what it's called, and the wonderful Tim Topham has a tutorial on that. So if you just search YouTube for internet MIDI top music, it should show up. But if we're talking about alternatives to duet playing, that is something I could get into, something we could look at. Oh yeah! Thank you, Nancy, for reminding me. I was asked to talk about pedaling in this video, and I totally forgot. Okay, first note about pedaling. A trick I've been showing my students is that I can tell the difference pretty much no matter which angle their video is at. I can tell the difference between them pedaling with their whole foot, I call it this one, rather than the ball of their foot. I can see. It doesn't matter where the camera is, I can see because it moves their whole body. So the first thing I would say to you in that simple regard for the students who are just getting started with pedaling and you need to talk about their heel staying on the floor, pay attention to the rest of their body. You can see whether it is or not. Now, in regards to actually demonstrating pedaling, I just showed you my main technique for this. I play it like absolutely playing for them and talking about what I'm doing and all of that we talked about in general technique, but instead of the arm piano, I have my hand foot. Let's call it a hand foot, shall we? My hand foot, which shows them this, and I can also use that to say to them, okay, you're going to do an up-down, that's what I call it, by the way, when you clear the pedal, up-down, because I believe it gets the point across, on the first beat of the bar, let's just say, right? So after your hand plays the note, I want you to do an up-down. There's my hand foot. So little things like that make a big difference, and pedaling has been going pretty well online. Now you can also have a pedal cam. For example, RIAM, RIAM, which is the Royal Irish Academy of Music, they put out videos of their exam pieces, which Raymond Keary plays, one of their head examiners plays, and in that he has a separate pedal camera, so when the pedal is used, so that you can see exactly what his foot is doing. So that is something you can explore if you need to get into this in depth, is having a camera down there, and this would be a good place to have a recorded video that you send to your student so that you can do that effectively. Linda, what metaphors do I use for pedaling? I don't really use metaphors there. I do mostly what I just said there. So up down is a big one for me, and I get them to practice that because what I want them to see it is one fluid movement to clear. By the way, I should say I'm talking about legato pedaling. I'm kind of assuming that's what we're mostly talking about teaching, because if we're talking about direct pedaling or something, that's pretty easy for them to learn and to understand what's going on, and even the notation, like if you have this one, it's pretty clear for them to see what's going on and where they put it down and then lift it up. Ta-da, done. But legato pedaling can be trickier, so beginning pedal exercises away from repertoire are important, and that's where I have them play. I usually combine this with a chord exercise, so I have them play this. I'm not going to do the actual pedaling now because of the angle we're at, guys, but I just have them play major chords going up, and they need to practice changing. So the way I describe it is that they're going to play the next chord up down. So it's hand and then foot. Up down, up down. So when I'm demonstrating that kind of exercise online, I would be using that vocabulary while I play it so that they can connect the things they can't see with the sound that they're hearing. And that's the simplest way I've found to describe it for them. And yes, I do sorry, I should be clear, that's overlapping quite a lot. Eventually we want there to be basically no overlap in sound, but if I find it's easier to move that back. So if you imagine the little notch in a pedal mark, it's easier to have that too far forward, too late, and move it back, than have it early and move it forward. It doesn't go that way. Does that make sense? So they're pedaling too late, that's okay, that gets faster and they move it back rather than going too early. So I want them to go after their hand has played the notes. Janelle, another idea for a future topic, maybe something about onboarding new students. I feel they have info they need to know up front and some they can learn as they go. Yeah. Are we talking though about general or online, Janelle? Could do a bit of both. That's an interesting one. I like that too, Bunny. Bunny said, I like Piano Safari's metaphor, ribbit, or down up, quickly. Yeah, ribbit, like a frog, yeah? That's a good one. Thank you for the compliment of my hand foot. It's beautiful, isn't it? What a technique. That just goes to show simple things work. Holding up your arm piano, holding up your hand foot, these things work and they get the point across, and that's what we're all about. That's nice, a nice description, Janelle. at the point of the pedal change, the old sounds trades places with the new sounds. I have them play a scale with one finger. Yeah, a lot of people do that with scales. I just do it with chords because the two things kind of coincide where I get to them in the curriculum, and I'm making them do double duty essentially. But it's a good idea to do with just a C scale or something as well. Or with one finger, yeah. Finger in air meets the foot under the piano. Yeah, I just find, especially for my younger students, and especially being the student that I was, I like very, very practical descriptions. Not that that's not practical, but it's erring on the side of listen, which is the advice I was given for pedaling. That's what I was taught. Oh yeah, you just listen. Okay, great. I mean, I learned to pedal eventually, didn't I? But it would have been more efficient to just tell me what mechanically I was supposed to be doing instead of telling me to listen. It is important to listen, and I tell my students that too. But I like the physical description of up, down to get the point across that this is just a physical thing. It's just about moving in this way or that, you know, like any other technique. Okay, awesome. General onboarding is the vote from Janelle. Great stuff. Thank you all so much for joining me today. It's been a really fun one. If you have follow-up questions about technique or anything else we talked about today, I'd be happy to answer them. Just shoot through a message here if you're watching on the replay, or you think of something later, or find me on Facebook, any of the places. I'd be happy to chat with you. And I hope you'll join me back here next week. So it looks like we're going to be looking at buddy lessons. Might do a general explanation of that and then an online discussion about that in online lessons, I mean, so that teachers who have never taught in that format before can consider it, and also we'll go into things that work more generally outside of buddy lessons as well, so it'll still be applicable to everyone. Onboarding in general is a good topic from Janelle there, so that we can think about next year. And we had one more, which I will check back with. Oh yeah, that was about different learning styles. Yeah. So we'll see how we go with those. If you have other ideas for topics though, let me know about them. And before you go, make sure to hit like on this video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the Colourful Keys channel. Thank you all so much for joining me. And I will catch you on the next one next week. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.